Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I offer an update on the case of Dan Markel? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Dan Markel was born on October 9, 1972, in Montreal, Canada, and was raised in Toronto. He earned a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and, in 2001, a JD. After working as a law clerk, Dan joined a law firm that represented white-collar defendants. In 2005, he became a professor at Florida State University. In February 2006, Dan married a law student named Wendy Adelon, and the couple moved to Tallahassee. Wendy graduated from law school that same year. They went on to have a son in 2009 and another son in 2010. Wendy's parents are named Harvey and Donna Sue Adelon. Donna worked in Harvey's South Florida dental practice and was once a contestant on the television show Wheel of Fortune. Wendy had two brothers, Robert and Charles. Only the latter is relevant to this story. Charles went by the name Charlie. He worked for his father as a dentist and was well known for his lavish and action-packed lifestyle. Despite having a promising start, Dan and Wendy had a terrible marriage. Wendy filed for divorce in September of 2012, and the divorce was finalized in July of 2013. There were a lot of hard feelings, and custody was hotly debated. The court ordered a 50-50 custody arrangement, which did not make Wendy happy. She wanted to move to South Florida with her two sons to be near her family. But in June of 2013, a judge ruled in Dan's favor and prevented this relocation. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On July 18, 2014, 41-year-old Dan Markel returned to his house on Trescott Drive in Tallahassee just before 11 a.m. after running a few errands. He was on the phone as he pulled his vehicle into the garage. He mentioned that someone unfamiliar was in his driveway. Right after this, Dan Markel was shot twice in the head while still in his vehicle. A neighbor heard the gunshots, walked over to check on Dan, and found him mortally wounded. The neighbor called 911 at 11:02 a.m. When the police arrived, they found Dan slumped over in the driver's seat of his vehicle. He was taken to a hospital where he died. The neighbor said that he noticed a car leaving right after the shooting. He thought it was a Toyota Prius. From video surveillance, the police figured out that the neighbor was correct about the make and model of the vehicle. They tracked down the Toyota Prius and discovered it was owned by a car rental company and had been rented to a man named Luis Rivera. Phone records connected Luis to another man named Sigfredo Garcia. Right after the murder, these two men went on a spending spree. The police eventually developed a theory of the crime. Here's what they think happened. Sigfredo Garcia recruited Luis Rivera to kill Dan Markel as part of a murder for hire. The two men had taken their orders from a woman named Catherine Magbanawa. She in turn received her orders from Charlie and Donna Adelon. Again, Charlie is Wendy's brother and Donna is Wendy's mother. The objective of the murder was to end the custody dispute between Wendy and Dan. Wendy could now have her sons to herself and move closer to her family members. Investigators had evidence to support this theory. For example, Catherine had been romantically involved with both Charlie and Sigfredo. Luis called Catherine right after the murder, and Catherine received a substantial amount of money from Charlie and Donna. The police had a theory, but not enough evidence for an arrest. In April of 2016, they implemented a sting operation to encourage the Adelons to make a mistake. An undercover FBI agent approached Donna Adelon in public. He handed her a piece of paper that had $5,000 written on it. The object here was to convince Donna that she was being blackmailed. Donna called Charlie and had a cryptic conversation about the encounter. Charlie called Catherine and had another cryptic conversation. Later, he was recorded in a restaurant talking to Catherine. It sounded like Charlie mentioned killing someone, but the audio was terrible. Later, the audio was cleaned up and became a key piece of evidence in this case. On May 26, 2016, 34-year-old Sigfredo Garcia was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. 3 weeks later, on June 17, 2016, Luis Rivera was indicted on charges of first-degree murder. He was already in prison for unrelated charges, so finding him was easy. Luis entered into a plea agreement with the state. He agreed to testify against his conspirators in exchange for 19 years in prison. Luis implicated Sigfredo and Catherine, but he did not know who was behind the murder plot. The only thing he knew was that the case involved a woman who wanted full custody of her children. Less than 4 months later, on October 1, 2016, Catherine was charged with murder. On October 4, Luis Rivera pleaded guilty to murder in accordance with his plea bargain. 3 years later, in October of 2019, Sigfredo and Catherine went on trial together. On October 11, Sigfredo was found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 30 years. The jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict as far as Catherine. The state announced that they would retry her for Dan's murder. On April 21, 2022, prior to Catherine's second trial, Charlie Adelson was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation to commit murder. His mother Donna and his sister Wendy were named by the state as conspirators, but they were not charged. The next month, Catherine had her second trial. On May 27, she was found guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation to commit murder. Catherine was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 60 years. Charlie Adelson went on trial in the fall of 2023. He testified in his own defense and offered a convoluted story about how he was the victim of extortion. On November 6, Charlie was convicted of all charges and eventually received the same sentence as Catherine, life in prison plus 60 years. On November 7, the day after Charlie's conviction, Donna and Harvey Adelson booked a flight from Miami International Airport to Dubai, leaving on November 13, and a flight on November 15 from Dubai to Vietnam. The United States does not have an extradition treaty with Vietnam. Charlie, who of course was in custody, communicated with his mother, Donna, on recorded phone calls. During one phone conversation, when it sounded like Charlie had been dropped from the call, Donna continued to talk to somebody else who was near her. She may not have realized that she was still being recorded. Donna mentioned the topic of extradition. On November 13, as 73-year-old Donna Adelson was getting ready to board the flight to Dubai, with the final destination of Vietnam, she was placed under arrest and charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation of murder. At the time making this video, she is awaiting trial, and her daughter, Wendy Adelson, has not been charged with any crime. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts in a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. The guilt of the players in this case who have already been convicted is really not in question. Luis Rivera confessed. Sigfredo Garcia was captured on video in the Toyota Prius with Luis. After being convicted, Catherine implicated herself when she testified against Charlie. And Charlie testified that he handed Catherine money, although he was trying to make it look like it was extortion. Item number 2. Luis and Sigfredo were already criminals prior to Dan's murder. They appeared to be sensation-seeking, impulsive, irresponsible, sadistic, violent, and antisocial. They had a deficit of critical thinking skills. As far as Catherine, I think she just wanted money and was comfortable with the idea of murder. She did not care if Dan lived or died. None of these three offenders could be classified as a master criminal. Item number 3. Charlie Adelson appeared to be reckless, impulsive, irresponsible, and sensation-seeking, but at the same time, he was conscientious enough to become a dentist and make a good living. Charlie told stories to people about him evading taxes, lying to the police, and possessing automatic weapons. One witness said that Charlie was at the center of blackmail attempts. It sounds like Charlie was fortunate to avoid negative encounters with law enforcement prior to the murder. He was just waiting for his big chance to get arrested. Charlie wanted to have an exciting lifestyle and thought of himself as a tough guy. However, the ringleader of this murder plot may have been his mother, Donna. This brings me to item number 4. Donna Adelon strongly disliked Dan Markel. She offered Wendy several ideas on how to encourage Dan to change his mind about the kids moving to South Florida. She was prepared to offer him a substantial amount of money, and she thought that Wendy should tell Dan that the children would be enrolled in Catholic school. This would make Dan upset because he was highly committed to his Jewish faith. When Dan was murdered, he was actively trying to prevent Donna from seeing her grandchildren unsupervised because she had allegedly said unkind things about him. In my opinion, Donna is probably guilty as charged. I believe that she simply wanted Dan to be dead. This may have started with a dispute about custody, but her ultimate motive was her pride and vindictiveness. If this was really about the children, how was Donna going to see them from Vietnam? Donna made a key mistake by not fleeing the country a long time ago. She may have waited so long because she was overconfident, truly believing that her son Charlie would be found not guilty. This demonstrates how Donna has a lack of critical thinking skills and has no empathy. She is unable to understand how other people perceive her. Moving to item number 5. Was Wendy Adelon involved in Dan Markel's murder? She has always denied responsibility, but the state accused her of being a conspirator. She was never charged, but they clearly believe she is guilty. Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Wendy is guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Wendy was involved in a custody dispute when Dan was murdered. She had the most obvious motive of anyone. She, of course, was close to Donna and Charlie as a family member and knew Catherine. Wendy appeared to be manipulative and vindictive. She had planned on divorcing Dan long before she actually separated from him. Wendy maintained the appearance of working on the marriage. For example, she planned a surprise birthday party for Dan, knowing that she would be gone by the time his birthday arrived. Wendy told the police that she drove past Dan's house on the morning he was killed. Later she denied this, but claimed that she could see crime scene tape from almost a mile away. Right after the murder, Wendy moved to South Florida with her children and changed their last name from Markel to Adelon. This behavior was foreshadowed in a book that Wendy published in 2011 titled This Is Our Story. A character in the book who left her husband changed the last name of her children. The hitmen knew that Dan would be leaving on the day after they killed him. Wendy knew this as well. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Wendy's alibi was that her television was being repaired by a technician. Donna is the one who actually ordered the repair. Wendy admitted that she had an acrimonious divorce, mentioned that her family hated Dan, and revealed a joke that Charlie made where he talked about hiring a hitman. If Wendy was in a conspiracy with her family members, she didn't seem to be covering for them too well. No physical evidence ties Wendy to the murder. None of the conspirators implicated Wendy. It is conceivable that Donna and Charlie acted without Wendy's knowledge. If they wanted Dan to be dead, there was no advantage to informing Wendy about the plan as long as she had an alibi. Again, Wendy's alibi was arranged by her mother, Donna. When considering the available evidence, do I think that Wendy Adelon is guilty? I believe she is guilty in reality, but she is not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The state would have a hard time convicting her based on the current evidence, and I doubt anyone else is going to testify against her. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Throughout the acrimonious custody dispute, Wendy became increasingly angry with her ex-husband, Dan. She complained to her mother, Donna, who was already not a member of the Dan Markel fan club. Wendy manipulated her mother by demonstrating how Dan's continued survival would be harmful to Donna. When Dan filed a motion to prevent Donna from seeing the children, that was all the provocation Donna needed. She introduced the idea of murder and easily recruited her son Charlie because he had antisocial tendencies and a terminal desire to win his mother's approval. Donna told Wendy about the plan, but Wendy adopted an attitude of, the less I know, the better. With her training as an attorney, she realized that she would be the obvious suspect. She did not ask for any of the details because she did not want to know. Wendy wanted to retain the ability to convincingly deny any involvement. Now moving to my final thoughts. In a sense, Wendy Adelson may have orchestrated the perfect murder, at least from her perspective. She complained until family members became homicidal and then stepped away to watch the fireworks from a safe distance. Wendy was able to weaponize Donna's vindictiveness, insecurity, arrogance, and sense of entitlement. She was also able to weaponize Charlie's impulsivity, grandiosity, sensation-seeking, and callousness. These same narcissistic characteristics, which facilitated the murder, now ensure that her family members will not turn on her. Wendy is safe in a force field of narcissism. Those are my thoughts on the case of Dan Markel. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.